Pascal Struyven, President of BATM, and on behalf of NATM and BATM, I want to welcome you all to another webinar under the theme of our innovation stream that we have started. Just for your information as well, we are recording this session so that it becomes available for our members that are unable to join us today. The classical housekeeping note that if you have any questions, feel free to submit them in the chat function. We will be more than happy to try to answer all your questions during or after the session this afternoon. And now it's my pleasure to give the floor to Kimberly Meyer from Data Angel. Kimberly, thank you very much for your support and your partnership this afternoon. And we're looking forward to a very informative webinar. Thank you.
Pascal and Odette and Sophie, thank you so much for having us here today. First, what I'm going to do is just talk a little bit about our agenda for today, because we are very happy to show you our data angel, who is a robot. Sometimes people ask me if I'm a data angel, and I wish I was, but is actually a robot, and what she can do. But we also very much want to make sure that this is valuable for you in meetings and travel, and that we talk about the technology that is available beyond what we do today in meetings and travel that really will change how we manage those programs. And so just briefly, we are building automation in the meeting space, and technology is not for technology's sake, as you know. As you see on the screen, the most important thing that we believe can happen, and many program leaders believe can happen, is we make our travelers, our attendees, and our employees, our agencies, experience better. So we stop so much rekeying of data, or problems with data, or problems with reporting, or problems with not having information. And we are actually able to use technology to truly put all of those data sets together seamlessly in an automated way, and really get value out of the data, as opposed to spending a lot of time working with it. And as we like to say, the good thing about automation is that robots don't complain. They don't make mistakes if you program them well, and they don't ever have to, you don't have to worry about that they're tired of the job or out of the office for a few days. And so, as I mentioned, we will talk about our product, the Data Angel, but we're also going to talk about data ecosystems and integrations and RPA and various technologies that are available. We won't get too techie on you, but various technologies that are available in meetings and travel that can make things work a lot better. And so just very briefly about us, we're about 20 years now in meetings data and meetings technology. We had a company that we grew for 10 years and then sold a few years back that focused on custom meetings automation and on sophisticated analytics and on robotics in meetings data. And we are a partner of Cvent, the technology, although we work with many technologies, we're independent. We're also very happy to help you with kind of any question. We're not sure we will be able to answer it, but we'll certainly try, about meetings data and how technology applies. We're really about meetings programs today. And so I will go ahead and right up front admit, unfortunately, I'm based in Chicago, Illinois, as is my colleague Peter. Unfortunately, I do not speak French or Flemish or Dutch. But I will just, Peter's going to come in later with some more kind of techie, but I will just have him introduce himself because he can. So Peter, I think you're still on mute.
So I don't speak Dutch or Flemish, maybe a little bit of French, so salut les Belges, and goedemiddag for Dutch folks out there, Dutch speaking folks. That's about as much Dutch as I can muster in the morning. But super happy to be here with you, and looking forward to the presentation.
Thanks, Peter. And I will also ask that Peter jump in any time if there's a piece that he feels that I'm missing that may be important to you. And again, please put anything in the chat, and Odette will let us know if we can answer things. And so the Data Angel, we are going to show you three commercial products today that we are offering and that Fortune 100 companies are using. And then we're going to talk about how this same type of technology applies to travel, and it really can apply to other places. And we would also mention that although we're going to show you our three commercial products today, what we have built, the Data Angel, is really, I would call her sort of a robotic factory, if you will. And what that means for us is, and I'm sorry, I just see a raised hand, so I'm going to pause for a sec. Okay, I'm just checking. Sorry, I thought I saw a raised hand on our team here. What that really means is that automation isn't just to accomplish one task, and we've built kind of a factory so that any pain points that come up around data, we can solve more than just the kind of the pain points that we're showing to you today. And so we're going to show you some real-time work that's happening. And for those of you who may not be as familiar with meetings data, and perhaps it's part of your program, but you don't get very deeply into it, the Data Angel is designed really to eliminate a lot of people time in agencies, in employees, and eliminate the errors. So the old world of meetings data is that everybody inputs everything and tries to make sure it's right. And if they go on holiday, then someone may look at the program, but we don't have all the data, those kinds of things. And then teams spend a lot of time correcting data before reporting time. And so just some fun things on the side, but over our 20 years, we have seen that a lot of data and documents and things tend to get mixed up or simply be wrong. And so again, we have all this time that is spent correcting data and working on data, and we want to pretty much eliminate that. And so I'm going to jump in. I'm going to escape now, and I'm going to jump into CVent. So what I am showing you, for those who are not familiar, is I'm logging into a standard CVent instance. We have one standard instance for our company. We don't actually plan meetings, of course, we develop technology, but this is what, if you have CVent or meetings tech, this is a standard instance. And what I will show you is automation that can be applied in a CVent instance and in other kinds of travel and meetings technologies. And so what you're seeing here, these little buttons with a halo, angels have halos in some illustrations. Those are our buttons that we've embedded into CVent, and I'm clicking on them. And what you're seeing is through technology, through use of this CVent API, and we'll talk more about APIs, and a little bit of pixie dust. What we are doing is we are coming up on top of the CVent screen, and we are telling meeting planners and program leads, we're telling them all of the issues that are in the data in real time, so in a couple of seconds. So we're not waiting until they enter data incorrectly and reminding them a week or two later, but telling them immediately. And all they need to do is click on a particular meeting in CVent. And what will happen is our angel will let them know, here are the problems with this meeting. And to the extent she can, our angel can correct a lot of them for the person, as opposed to making them do the work. And so I'm going to show you just a couple of examples. And again, love your thoughts about or questions about applications of this. And so in this case, we need to know what city our event is in, and the city of Cincinnati. The angel recognizes that it's looks like it's incorrect. It's a US city. And so the Data Angel will offer, out of a library of perhaps, I think we're at 32,000 meeting cities, places where people tend to have meetings. She will offer the correct answer. And then all you need to do is go ahead and click on a green check, and the angel will put that information into CVent in the right place correctly. So there's a number of different errors in this meeting. And the idea is we want planners to either have the Data Angel help them correct this particular issue, or in the case where the Data Angel doesn't know, for example, this issue, she doesn't know what the right code is, which meeting sponsor's cost center is being charged for this issue. Then there's some options to either have the Data Angel take the planner to the correct place in CVent, and the planner can enter a correct cost code. There's options always, you'll see this little button around here, remind me later. There's options always to say, I'm too busy right now to correct this as the planner, but I will correct it later. And that works, but we recommend it only works actually for 3 times. And then the planner is quote unquote stuck here until they actually correct the data, because our goal is to have good data in our system all the time. And especially during COVID, what we saw is as planners came and sourcing agents and team members came in and out because they were laid off for a bit, or they took a holiday, or they had to leave, we wanted all the data to be correct and the information to be in the system, because we might not be able to get a hold of them. And so there's some other options here. There's an option to remind me later, but also an option, if I do not know the right answer, perhaps one of my teammates does. And so I can assign this issue to a teammate if it really isn't my issue per se. And then also we have a feature that we call whitelisting, pretty common name, I think, in the industry. And that's really about, for some reason, I can't input this data. I don't know it, there's a problem. And whitelisting in the meetings world, as a meeting is planned and then perhaps 6 months or even a year passes until the meeting occurs, whitelisting is about the story of what's happening in the meeting. So if the meeting sponsor is perhaps going outside of an approval that we've had, it's a place to choose a reason. And sometimes, let's see if I do on this one, we also have an open text box that will allow me to put my story in about why I couldn't do what I've been asked to do, or couldn't provide a key piece of documentation, or perhaps again, a sponsor has some information that the program leader or my agency lead really needs to know. And so in that case, the whitelisting can send that issue off to my boss to approve, or can be automatically approved in terms of this meeting. It all depends on what that the company is looking for in terms of that data. And so I'm just going to show you a few other things. There's a number of different rules. Rules can be around, as you've just seen, data is missing, or data doesn't add up correctly, or something looks off. You've said that we've achieved 50% savings, but that seems quite high for this type of meeting. So there can be a number of rules, and there can also be guidance here. So some of our companies have asked, you don't need to say anything's wrong, but just when you get to this point, when our planners get to this point, could you give them some guidance on screen that says, at this point in the meeting, could you please remember to do XYZ that isn't in CVent, but perhaps is part of the process for meetings. And I'm going to pause for just a moment to ask Odette if there's anything in chat that we might need to answer right now, or I'll continue with the demonstration.
Just continue. There are no questions at the moment yet.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And
Right, so
Kimberly,
yes.
Kimberly, before you leave the screen that's behind you, can you just explain what that budget shortcut button does, and the significance there?
You know what, Peter? Lucky you. You go ahead and explain it, and then I'll jump into it.
All right. So one of the things that we see in applications that have been designed over the years is that sometimes there's a number of navigation steps that people have to take to get from one part of an application, like in this case, it's the meeting details, and then somebody has to go to the budget. But the way the application evolved over time, it requires that you navigate through 5 or 6 different screens to get to your budget. So this is just an example of putting in a code snippet into a host application to help people navigate more easily. So when Kimberly clicks on that button, she'll be taken to the budget screen right away. She doesn't, what you probably can't appreciate here is that normally somebody would have to navigate through about 5 screens to get to the budget. So these are the little things that Data Angel specifically can do, but also that are becoming more available, like this kind of option is becoming more available on applications that you can do custom work.
Thanks so much, Peter. And so I've navigated into a particular, that same meeting in CVent, and once again, the Data Angel is programmed to keep reminding me that I should be correcting my errors. I'm going to go ahead and say, remind me later, because I'd like to show you some custom reporting functionality. And so what we have heard from clients about CVent, certainly, but also, quite frankly, we hear this about a number of different systems, is we love that there is reporting functionality available, but it isn't exactly what we need in some cases. And so in CVent, you have many options for reporting, and you have an option to export all the data. And for some companies, exporting the data, you have a massive data set, but then it will take people all over the world some time, or an Excel macro, to create the kind of report that they're really looking for in their company, customized with the company logo, or with, quite frankly, with data that isn't in CVent. So they're creating reports, but they're going through a lot of work. And so the example I'm going to show you is our working example of what companies are using. We have 80 countries around the world, and planners using these type of reports, where instead of going through all that, download data, format data, macro it, do some calculations, change something before I send it to a meeting owner, a meeting sponsor, or someone else, we've again embedded these buttons. So you click on a button and you get, in 4 to 5 seconds, the report with the data that you need in the format that the company has approved. And you're able then to go ahead and just use it, to go ahead and save it to your system, to email it out, to have it in Excel if you'd like. But the idea is that we want, again, to take those 20 minutes, hour of reporting time that people have to go through, and we want to just give them the report and have them use the information with colleagues to make decisions, or to, in some cases, our pharmaceutical clients need reports about their expenditures on HCPs or healthcare professionals. And so
there's a question about, can you create, or is there a button to go back to the previous screen after using a shortcut button?
I don't have one set up in our system, but Peter, I believe it's what the client needs. You can create as many buttons, as needed. Yep. And so I'm going to jump back to the reporting for just a sec. So for meetings programs, for the companies that we work with and hear from, they always need options to change currency. This particular meeting I'm showing you is only in US dollars, but you always need to change currency for various stakeholders. Sometimes you need to show different departments and how much they're spending, or perhaps different countries in the world, because different countries are sending participants, things of that nature. And these reports, and again, we're just creating them through automation, can be as detailed. The first page is a summary, but here's all the information about a meeting, about all of the rooms and the food and beverage, and we can add in any data that's needed, savings data, or by participant data, or something I'll talk about later that we are really excited about is reporting, again, that may not be native to CVent or to a particular technology. So we've been asked to create, imagine this report with some pretty green leaves up in the corner in a tree. We've been asked to look at grabbing some carbon / sustainability type data from another system, and being able to produce a report so every meeting owner can see not only what kind of their costs were and participants, but also what was their carbon footprint or sustainability footprint of this meeting. Because many of you, of course, and the world, we are looking to lower our carbon footprint and to try to make choices and help our meeting stakeholders, our owners, make choices that help to lower that carbon footprint. And so that is pretty much instantaneous reporting. And the one other thing I'm going to show you very briefly, which is still in beta for us, meaning folks are testing it, but we haven't launched it to many clients yet, is something that helps with simply auditing. And I don't know how applicable this might be to a travel program, but I can tell you in the meetings, there's probably an application. And in the meetings world, folks spend a lot of time in agencies and within organizations themselves, within the corporations, trying to make sure that all the data is actually available, things like contracts or communications with hotels or final budgets, as well as making sure that all the data kind of matches up. So if my contract with the hotel says I had 112 rooms. Is that what's also in my CVent budget that I'm reporting on? And so I'm going to just caveat that our user interface, our user experience isn't as pretty as we would like it to be yet, because we're still in beta, but I'd love to show it to you. And what we're doing here is we're just taking all of the meetings from CVent. I just showed you the advanced GSD one, and we're just making it one click. So you can see all of the information that you would like to see from CVent and potentially from another system. And so for those familiar with meetings programs, again, over here is just my general information. Here's some budget information. We could put in more information about participants or whatever someone would need. But the key is over here are all my documents from CVent that are stored. And so I can easily look at this hotel contract, and I can look over here and I can make sure that my hotel contract, first of all, is it signed and is it appropriate? Has the right thing been uploaded from my meeting? And then do the numbers tie out? And if they don't, then I have an ability to send it back to my agency or my meeting planner and let them know something's wrong and tell them about it. And then, as you just saw in the what we call the rules, then that information is going to pop up for them and they can fix it and resubmit it back to me. And so it's just a much faster way. We have some folks estimating it's going to save them anywhere from an hour to several hours per meeting, just to be able to click on the different documents and very quickly have a way to notify people of what's correct or maybe incorrect, and then go back a week later or a month later with comments back and forth and between and reporting about the comments that the agency said, what happened in the meeting, here's why I don't have the document, and basically just that audit trail. And so I'm going to pause there again for 1 sec just to check in with Odette.
Yes, we have some questions. Are you able to answer process improvement issues broadly through your products? Peter's example of the budget shortcut made me question whether you can solve for other issues either that are generally experienced or on a customized basis.
Yeah,
You get the question? Yeah.
Yep. So we are very happy, and then Peter, I'll turn it over to you, but the products I'm showing you right now are the ones that we've created because we know that many corporations have these problems. And we are very happy to use our Data Angel robot factory, if you will, to look at other process improvement opportunities and to more, to look at kind of maybe customized functionality. What we do know is when our clients suggest something, when we then suggest, would this work for, we ask another corporation, and very often the problems can be similar. So yeah, we're happy to look at any new problems and see if we can solve them, or we can give you suggestions on how you might solve them, internally or within a technology.
And yeah, there's a couple of examples. I think this meeting validation example is a good example of process improvement, where a user would normally have to navigate to maybe 8 or 9 different screens in CVent to look at this data. And by putting it in one screen, there's just inherently a lot more efficiency in doing that. So this process was this meetings validation process was designed around the idea that we can make it easy for people to get the right information in front of them very quickly, without necessarily having to know how CVent works. We don't have to train the auditing team about all the intricacies of how to navigate in CVent. So that's kind of, it's not exactly process automation, but it's process automation and supporting how humans behave. And the other one, which is just a recent example, is CVent has a city card integration where you can issue a card for a meeting, a payment card for a meeting, and the native functionality leaves the process too open to all users. So with Data Angel, we've enabled the process to be more streamlined for issuing cards, and also to prohibit the issuing of cards to people who shouldn't have them at different process steps in the meeting. So what we're asked to do is help get information into CVent that is sitting outside CVent and needs to be in CVent for people to make decisions, and also just to streamline the process by which they're working inside CVent or inside a native technology. So those are some examples. I hope we answered the question with that. But a customized approach, yes, but whenever we build something, we build it in a framework so other companies can take advantage of it as easily as possible.
Okay, if the person that dropped the question, let me know if it's what you were hoping for as an answer. I'll go to the next question. What other systems are used to create new data? So systems that all belong to one client, or a system that belongs to a client and a general system where data can be found?
So if I'm understanding the question correctly, we are working with a particular client, a number of clients and their particular cVent instances, and we may be pulling data or being given files from other systems to that client, but there isn't sort of a shared system where different companies can get other companies' data. That's not, is that the question? That's not what we do, is collaborative data.
Inge, you dropped the question, is this what you're looking for? Partly, she said. Okay.
Yep. Okay.
And we're happy to talk offline. If it's very specific, we're happy to answer it.
Yes, I can connect you. Okay, another question. Can you clarify from where you obtained the carbon footprint measurement data?
Sorry, could you ask that again?
Can you clarify from where you obtained the carbon footprint measurement data?
So we would obtain that from whatever the particular company would like to use. We are certainly not experts in carbon. We don't have that data or in sustainability. What we would just do if the company said, for example, I think you had a carbon provider last week on this
We had, yes,
program.
Yes,
if the company said, I'd like to use data from that particular provider, we would just get access to that data. So it's whatever the company, some companies we understand already have, in essence, their own database that is processing that data. So
another question, is there any AI element you have or plan to build into Data Angel that can start to second guess repeat users and their information? For example, grow an understanding of the cost centers, GL codes that apply to the area of the business.
Ooh, so Peter, I'm going to have you answer that one, but be conscious of time because we have a lot more to cover.
Sure, Kimberly always tells me to be conscious of time because there may be too many details. But yes, the Data Angel learns all the time from the information that is being put into the pop-ups that you saw. So for example, when Kimberly answered Cincinnati, then that misspelling of Cincinnati would be available. If somebody misspelled Cincinnati in the future the same way, then the Data Angel would make that as the only answer. If somebody gave a misspelling that the Data Angel had never seen before, she would be presenting the things that sound like the misspelling. So every time that somebody puts in a piece of information that is verified, it goes into one of our AI libraries. And the same with this example that you have of GL codes. But the reason that we have the whitelisting feature is to provide a learning mechanism as well, because every time that somebody whitelists something for a legitimate reason, those things are reviewed and the learning tables are updated with that information. So we trust machine learning, but we're always verifying, but that's part of the learning process. So it's built in inherently to the Data Angel.
And Odette, just let me know if I should continue or.
I think you should continue. No
Great.
more questions.
So we're just going to show you two more very quick things within the Data Angel, and then go back to PowerPoint to explain a bit more about broader than the Data Angel and travel as well. And we would love to answer kind of more questions. So one just, I think this is a cute note, although perhaps it's not so cute to some, but one of the things, unfortunately, that happens again in the meetings world is lots of documents that you need about the meeting. You see some of the common ones here that tend to get uploaded. And I have had companies, large companies say to me, this is really interesting, but not something that is that valuable to us because we know that all of our data is correct and our documents are correct. And what I would offer is, with great respect to employees and agencies, that we in 20 years have never seen a meetings program, a larger one, where it's easy, where folks really have all the data and all the documents correctly. And we say, just go into a few meetings and, let's check it out. Let's see if that is true. And so what I think is cute, but what we unfortunately found during COVID is people were frantically trying to get things in. And what we would see is something like this, where a document says this should be the site availability report. And as it turns out, and this is quite big, but it's a picture of somebody's cat. It's hard to see. I should have made sure that it was smaller, but this is a picture of a cat. So again, apologies, but we saw things that were uploaded that, yeah, you can see the cat nose right now, that really had no business being there in CVent. But again, it's either someone trying to be funny or someone trying to, for whatever reasons. And so that's not what we want, right? We don't want a contract that's not signed. We don't want pictures. We want these documents correctly. And hence, it's important to do a review and understand how clean your data is, certainly in the meetings world. And we understand, though, again, the same is relatively true in travel. So I'm going to jump back for just a second, and I'm going to show you one other thing in Data Angel, and then we're going to move on. And so what I'm going to show you is just another example. Let's hope I think I'm still logged into CVent here. I'm just going to show you a really quick whitelisting report. So again, this is that same technology that can create, any report you need. This one happens to be about those exceptions, those times that absolutely happen when a planner cannot provide the information. And so this is just showing you, for these meetings, the planner has asked, there's an issue. The planner has asked, for some reason, I can't correct the issue. And there's notes, and the whitelist is allowed to be, if the client chooses, the whitelist is allowed to be declined. Send it back, tell the planner they have to do it. Or it perhaps can be auto approved. There's no commission here, and that's okay. There's no contract available, and that's okay in this case. And so we think that both for use of external reporting, but also for kind of use of tracking how we're doing in our program, the instantaneous reports have been really helpful. And so with that, I am going to jump back to our presentation, and we're going to start. This is just about the meetings validation, the contract validation. I just showed you just some information, so I'm going to move on from there. And we're now going to talk a little bit more about the landscape beyond the Data Angel of using this type of automation and the automation itself. And one of the analogies we like to use is that if you're a driver and you save up and go to buy a new car, most people are interested in, I'd like this hybrid vehicle, and I'd like leather seats and in this color and a few other details. But they don't really want to know exactly how the hybrid technology in the car is built. That's a little bit too much information for those of us like me who just want to drive but not really want to understand the build or certainly fix it myself. And so we're just going to tell you a little bit about, again, the world of data. We're happy to get offline into more information for you, but about these technologies that are very much available today, that not all agencies, travel providers, tech companies are using, but that do allow you to do things instantaneously. And so Peter's going to talk about each of these in just one sec. And what I will just say is personal, kind of more than a pet peeve in the industry, is it is very traditional in your organizations and corporations for the travel data and the meetings data to be completely separate in separate systems and not even have a single system in the middle or ever be transferred. And so when you go to negotiate with the exact same airlines and many of the same hotels and hotel chains, many of you are trying to combine that data. And up until a few years back, many of the providers weren't even ready to kind of negotiate with you with an understanding of your spend and your footprint in both of these categories. And that is really very much kind of old news, the old way of looking at things. And as well, it does not allow you to take advantage of a lot of what can happen today, not just in negotiations and providers, but in your organizations here. You've talked about 2 weeks ago, I saw the presentation of Scott Gillespie, who talked about purposeful travel and festive road, and many of the concepts we're talking about, where it's not just about cost anymore, and it's not even just about an approval, it's about how this travel or these meetings truly benefit our organization, or if we should be doing more of them. And so having this data available is very much going to give you some of the insights that can move the programs from where they have been into a much more sophisticated and arguably important realm. And so with that, Peter.
Sure, thank you, Kimberly. So on the left-hand side, these silo-based systems, they're very traditional. What we're seeing, the evolution in data is more of an ecosystem, and we use the word ecosystem because things depend on each other and they're interacting with each other all the time. So things are matrix. They join in many ways, not just through a single line. And a lot of what we're seeing is the availability of data in real time. So rather than monthly batches and things like that for reporting, a lot of the time we can get data from more modern systems using APIs. So we'll be talking about that. And also what's interesting as well in the past few years is that we can connect systems in different places. So they're connected not just directly to one another for reporting purposes, but for decision-making purposes along the way. So I'll just talk about that a little bit more. So Kimberly, go to the next slide, please. You were going to talk about?
Oh, I was just going to jump in to say, if you're kind of sitting and watching this and wondering, do I need to know this? Whether it's meetings or travel, what we hear and see is there are things right now that people would like to report on that, again, in the past had to be take data out of multiple systems and try to combine them, and not sure if one system is the most up-to-date data. But in this world we're talking about, where data really is cost-effective and instantaneous, I mentioned that sustainability report that we've been asked for, which is data from some carbon provider and data that's in CVent in the meetings world. But I would certainly think that in travel you're doing, again, we're not the experts in travel at all, but we know just a bit about it. But I imagine that you're doing those reports. We're working on it, certainly. A lot in meetings about the true return of investment on that meeting, or return on objectives, meaning not just what did the meeting cost, but part of that return would be, was the sustainability footprint low, but also, we took a poll of our participants and we're including that data to say our participants thought not only the meeting was good, but they actually are going to change their behavior. They're going to do something. They've said they're going to buy a product or change their behavior because of attending that meeting. So that behavior change, or even attitude perception change, they came in saying about our company, and now they're saying we're really interested, or again, whatever those perceptions are. This is all available. The data is available typically in multiple systems in your organization, or can be, and very easy today to put it together. And this is an example, this is an example of a sophisticated report. It's simply an example of a report we produced to say, how much time did we save because you're using the data angel? Because we know that we've got to quantify things, but the idea is, this, again, type of reporting, whether it's for thousands of people or a few executives, all of these reports can be produced very easily using APIs and some of the other tech that Peter's going to talk about today. And they can be produced on meeting and travel data and other data. So sorry, back to you, Peter. Oh, yeah.
One question. Can you set your own ROI and savings criteria?
Of course, yeah. And no corporation we know does any of that exactly similar to another corporation.
And part of our model is to, whenever we come across a business problem, is to try and anticipate what all of the variables will be in that calculation. So when it comes to customize it's not a multi-million-dollar project. So by developing frameworks that apply to an industry and a business process, we're able to act a little smarter and quicker, and get results very, very quickly. So it's more about a framework and understanding what the business problem is that the approach that we take. So I'm going to jump into these a little bit more about the ecosystems and some areas to consider first. So actionable insights are what these data ecosystems are being built for. So at the time that a traveler is choosing a trip, for example, we want to be able to give them visibility into information that will help them make a good decision. And these things are happening in real time much more often. And then, so if we're going to be making decisions in real time or asking people to make decisions in real time based on data, then we have to make sure that that data is clean and validated. So we need to give people the correct data so they can make the correct decision. If we're serving them up information that is not quite right, the chances are their decisions won't be quite right either. So we're a big proponent of checking data early and often. So this means that as soon as possible after that piece of data is collected from someone in a system, that it's validated to make sure that it meets the parameter, like normal parameters. There's always going to be exceptions, but the sooner we can check that data, the less knock-on opportunities there are for people to make poor decisions, or not poor decisions because it's their fault, but just uninformed decisions or poorly informed decisions. So this data validation becomes very, very important, and the automatic data validation becomes important because people are being asked to make decisions in real time. And then process automation, what we see a lot specifically in travel and meetings, the combination of those two is there is still a lot of manual sharing of data, where there are systems available now that will allow information to flow from, for example, for travel bookings, to flow from the meeting. So during the registration process, we collect that information and let it flow from, for example, Cvent directly to your travel provider. So this is a reality. We don't need to be shipping around emails with personally identifiable information in them about people's booking preferences and things like that. That should all be in a system to protect people's personally identifiable information, as well as to make sure that the data is correct so people aren't copying and pasting things. So these process automation steps are available. Now, we're often asked about some of these, some key terms that allow the data ecosystems to exist. And the first one, I'm just going to talk through a couple of key points. APIs. So when you're talking to people about integrations, the technology people are just going to say, oh yeah, we've got an API for that. And some of you may not know what that is, but you can think of an API as a pipe. It's just a pipe between two systems where the two systems are told how to connect with each other, and then the data flows freely between that pipe. So that's the easiest way to think about those. And the integrations are often built on APIs, modern systems at least. Robotic process automation is something that people throw around all the time and say, oh, we can just apply robotic process automation to that. And I'm very cautious about using robotic process automation because it's usually used where there are no formal APIs. And so what people do is they look at what humans are doing and they see, okay, this person's going to this screen, they're typing in this information, that kind of thing. And then the robotic process automation is just automating a user interface. And the challenge with that, it's a great stopgap. There's no denying it. They're relatively easy to set up. The problem is if the host application changes and software that's software as a service like Cvent, like lots of the web applications that we use, if you put robotic process automation in place and the host application changes, probably your robotic process automation is going to fail. It's going to break because the screen has changed or there's new values in the dropdowns, things like that. So robotic process automation is a great tool for short-term fixes, but not really a long-term thing. And if you are using them, just be very aware that they're fragile. Artificial intelligence, we already talked about this. We have a fairly firm approach to this, and we believe that artificial intelligence should be used to support the process, not replace people. So the way that we deploy artificial intelligence is we try to put information in front of people so they can make a choice between one or two things, right? We're not going to make the decision for them. We're just going to say, hey, based on the information and the context that you're working in, we think you should be choosing this or one of these three options. So artificial intelligence should be leveraging existing information and helping humans make good and simple decisions to move the process along.
And I'll just mention, for those of you who were on a couple of weeks ago when Scott Gillespie was showing his trip advisor, the idea that certainly we've heard loud and clear from travel and meeting managers is, we're not going to put a system in that says your meeting isn't approved, your trip, you've gone through the questions, your trip is simply not approved. What we want to do is put in guidelines. We want to put in a little bit of tech that allows us to ask questions and really let the traveler or the meeting planner or meeting stakeholder know, this trip sounds like it's a great idea, but here's some things to consider. This meeting sounds like it might be better off virtually. We're not telling anyone what to do. Again, as Peter said, we're simply advising and pointing out some good information that then that person can take into consideration as they go ahead and plan a longer trip, a shorter meeting, a meeting virtually, whatever the case may be. And Peter, I'm looking at the time. Let's jump through code snippets and then see if we've got some questions.
Sure. So just quickly on code snippets, we saw them in Kimberly's demo where she clicked the budget shortcut button, and it took her, instead of navigating through 5 screens, it took her directly to the budget. There's a host of very small process automation steps that are relatively simple to put in place. It can be as easy as grabbing cost center information out of an external system in order to populate what's going on. So there's often native functionality that just needs some help. So these code snippets just help us enhance the host application. And I think in some instances, agencies are using code snippets to do some of the file finishing between the information that's coming out of the GDS and their billing systems. And what we find is there's people that they just do it because that's the way they've been doing it, and they don't realize that the technology that they're using can be used to enhance a process. It's just we have to think a little bit further outside the box. So I would challenge you all, if you know about some of these steps that people find tedious or repetitive, that you also ask around and see if anybody's been able to automate those steps just by putting code snippets in. Code snippets is kind of a generic term, but little steps that can, little macros that can help the process go along.
And I would just echo what Peter said to say, 18 months ago, when we were talking to people about the data angel and what we'd be able to do in Cvent, there were certainly those, in the meetings ecosystem in the agency world who said, oh, we're just going to do emails. That's not possible yet. That's not possible today. And sort of here we are. And we would suggest, in working with some of the large agencies on integrating travel data and the registration process for meetings of travel, that again, they've been doing a great job. They are doing a great job. There are people in those organizations who know how to do more API work and code snippets and things, but maybe they may not be readily available to you. And so asking the question, getting someone on your kind of tech team to keep asking the questions about, yes, but just because you haven't done it yet, is it possible to do this and make my process for my traveler or my meeting sponsor a lot easier? And again, we would just say in today's world, it probably is. It's just a question of investigating a bit and seeing if it's kind of relatively easy to do, or if it's something that the provider, the agency, should really kind of take on as their next innovation. And so with that, I've got a couple of more notes, but I would love to pause and ask Odette. And as I do that, I will also just mention that we, Peter and I both, and our teams have sorely missed being in person. We believe in in-person meetings, and we are happy. We'll put my email up on screen and phone number after this. We're happy to answer any questions, whether they're about Data Angel or just the industry. And we're very happy. We hope many of you will be going to industry conferences coming up. We're very happy always to have a beer and talk about where we're headed and how the programs are doing and can be improved. So with that, Odette.
Well, I'm looking forward to live in-person events, and there's many in the call as well, as I know. We have one final question. Do you have thoughts about combining final costs from supplier invoices, list of attendees that include healthcare persons? I learned something today. And then with business rules, the calculation of transfer of value per attendee divided by the healthcare person. Can that be done automatically? So it's a long list of requirements. Yeah, if it can be automated.
So the answer is absolutely yes. We are already doing that for life science and pharmaceutical companies. Absolutely. Yeah, that can be. Yeah.
And I think the beginning of that question was, do you have thoughts about combining these final costs? That would be an understatement. I spend probably at least a third of my day every day talking to companies about HCP reporting, transfer of value, and how to automate the process, how to alleviate some of the calculations that are done manually through technology products like Cvent, and getting better integration between travel systems and meetings. I would one of the ongoing challenges that we have, that we try and promote every time we can, is more visibility into the difference between pricing information and cost information that is in the GDS versus final bills that come from agencies, and how we can get that information into systems of record like Cvent to help with this transfer of value reporting. So that question is dear to my heart.
One more question. Do you only work with Cvent, or are there equally comparable suppliers as well?
So we have started with Cvent because I don't know what the market share is, but they are certainly the predominant meetings technology in the industry right now for larger companies. And we are happy to, we certainly pull data from other systems and things, and we are happy to consider, we have worked with many other systems in the past, so happy to talk about that. We just, again, started with Cvent as we launched, because so many companies are using it.
Okay, when there are no more questions, I'm going to make myself visible again. Can you go to the next slide, Kimberly? Because then I'm doing the closing. I want to thank you both for joining us and having this conversation with us. Yeah, it's a bit difficult communicating sometimes in this setting, but this is what we chose. For the audience, it will be recorded. You will be informed when it's ready to look back. We have in this series 5 webinars and 2 more to go. The upcoming one is on the 17th of March. It's Johnny Thorson of Spotnana. At our conference last year, he had 6 minutes to introduce Spotnana in Pechakucha style, and now he will get the full hour to explain what Spotnana is all about. We hope to see you again, and yeah, we hope to see many of you again in the upcoming webinar. And thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you. We hope to see you in person.
Who knows?